I hope you are still seeing my screen. Let me show you what are we going to cover, okay, and in which order. So, okay, now see what we have to cover, right, as part of different sections. We need to cover. We need to first start with what, how to deal with complexity, right? Because that is the basic question which comes up after you write a program. You are asked by someone, like after you write a program, let's say someone asks you to swap two numbers, right? And then someone will say, okay, give me the, tell me the big O notations, right? And for big O notations, maybe there are two different categories within which the person can ask you. Someone can say, okay, tell me what is the time complexity for this, tell me the space complexity of this, right? So we need to understand how do we really figure that out, okay, and how we reach to that question and how to identify all this. So that is the first thing which you're going to hit, okay. Okay, this is one thing. After this, we need to know there are a lot of patterns, right? While you are given a problem statement, there are a lot of patterns which we should be knowing. And if you know those patterns, it would become easier for you to solve the question, right? But the analysis which would require from your side when you read a question is that out of these patterns, what patterns may fit to solve this question, right? Whichever question is thrown at you. Okay. So right, but you can make that judgment only if you know about certain patterns which are your solving patterns, right? So we'll talk about then in the next module, right? After complexity, after this, right, we have a DSA module, right? What does a DSA? DSA stands for data structures and algorithm, right? And it's just three letters here, but it is like a whole world in itself. So what are we going to cover there? If I move up, right, if I show you DSA, okay, where is that DSA part? uh, Here, right, you have different see data structures and algorithms. So data structure is one thing, algorithm is a separate thing, right? Data structures is, there are a lot of data structures in which we should be knowing: linked list, stacks, queues, arrays, right, hash map, trees, graphs, right? And there are a lot of variants of each one of them, okay. Someone can ask you what are these data structures, and if someone can also ask you, please design a data structure of double linked list for me, how can you do it using Java? So that is what you need to learn, right? If you, again, right, depending on your comfortable level and everything, right, you should work accordingly, right, and try to build things one after another, right? And that is the process which we will do. I have listed down what we need to cover, right, and we will cover it in a order, but that is the next thing which we are going to cover after the patterns part. Okay, this is about only about data structures. What are algorithms? Algorithms are regarding to searching and sorting algorithms, right? Searching, linear search, binary search, lot of search techniques, right? We have sorting techniques. I think six or seven sorting techniques are there, and there are a lot of other things which you need to cover. Okay, so this is all coming under DSA. So DSA itself is a very big module in itself, right? Now, after DSA, we need to cover OOPS. We have covered OOPS from Java, about four pillars, right? There are more things, principles which we need to talk about and follow, right? So we will cover them also. We'll start seeing them, like what are the other things, like cohesive, right? And there are other things which I don't remember in the terminology way. But once we start discussing it, we will go through one by one every principle. Okay. Then there is something called design principles. What is design principle, right? I do not have the name, and okay, I have the name. Just a second. Design principles, right? This is the principle, right? Dry, right? I do not remember the full form. Kiss, Yagni, solid, right? Solid has a full form is this, right? Dependency, inversion, interface segregation, list of substitution, open closed, single responsibility, right? Similarly, all of these has a meaning. Okay, so we are going to discuss about these principles, okay, and then move ahead. I was talking about OOPS, right? Coupling and cohesion, right? This is what we need to discuss extra, and there are other things we'll be discussing, right? After this, right, we have to discuss about design patterns. What are the design patterns? There are three categories of design patterns which we have to understand. If you understand, you can see, right, creational pattern, structural pattern, and behavioral pattern. I am not sure how much we will be able to cover, but we will see, right? As you can see, right, I told you we are going to discuss about singleton and the factory pattern, and page get model is something which we have designed only for automation framework, right? So that's why it's not mentioned here. But you can see these are the other patterns which we should be knowing, right? So we will try to see what all we can do. Right? It's not that whatever I've written I'll be covering, because for me also this is almost everything is new. Okay, so but let's see, right, how we will proceed, right? Okay, what was the next step? We will be covering about SQL. We will see, I have added the SQL module under this DSA part of the roadmap. Why SQL is being added here? Because using SQL, you will get to know how do you create entities, how the relationship of entities has to be maintained, how they will interact with each other, right? Because that is a very core skill which you need to have if you want to work on the low level design creation, which is a kind of a round, which is a kind of an interview round which you will have to face if you're sitting for these companies, right? If you know SQL well, you will be able to design your low level design very well. When I say low level design, right, which is the next part here, right, which is to, let's say they will ask you, okay, create me a low level design for our airway system, for our airline system, right? And then you will have to tell them, okay, I will create these many classes, these classes will have these methods, these uh, variables, and this class will be interacting with the other class like this, and all that, right? So you have to design it, but to design it you need to understand the entities, you need to understand the relationship which you can set up between two entities, and you will be better at it if you understand SQL well. Okay, so that's why I added SQL here. After this, right, we have LLD, which is low level design. But before a low level design, we will be covering UML. I think it is called Unified Manipulation Language, or whatever that thing is. I don't remember the full name. But this is like another. This is like the way which can help you to design your. I mean, which can help you to draw your designs, right? And this is a universal language which is used across industries to depict the designs, right? Which is the low level design. So you using this, you will learn how to create the entities and how to set up the relationship between them. Okay, so you will learn how to set up the relationship and what relationship you should set, and how to draw them. You will learn it through UML. Okay, after this we will go into LLD and we will start solving the problem statements. We will look at some of the problems, and we will try to solve that LLD problems ourselves by designing it, right? And then we will see, right, and then we will go in and document, I mean, we will start doing it at the UML, which is just on the screen, to draw it, and then we will go and implement in the code itself, right? We will take a lot of examples. After this we will start with the AWS. Okay, we will cover AWS as part of this again, right? Not everything. We will touch upon things at the basic level from the knowledge point of view, right? But whatever we have to cover from the bootcamp side, I think we will cover it in the bootcamp only, which is the S3 bucket, the EC2 instance, the roles, right, and the overall structure of the AWS. But apart from it, there are hundreds of other services which AWS provide. We will try to walk through all of them, or at least some of them, in this module. Why this is required? Because the next part after LLD is to cover the HLD, which is high level design. What is high level design? High level design, just a second. High level design means that uh, you have to design the system, right? You need to tell what kind of servers you need, what kind of different infra you will be using to support that application. Someone asks you, okay, create me a application like Facebook, right? What kind of infra do you need? Do you need a cache manager? Do you need a server, backend server? What kind of backend server, right? And all that. So we will be working on that. So for that, there are different categories within HLD, which is key concepts and the basic building blocks. So we will talk about them. Once we understand all of this, we will start practicing our HLD programs, and we'll do that. Right? Now, this is, if you see this, right, when we are saying all this, these are a lot of different modules. But after this, right, I mean, apart from this, right, we have to also solve the questions, right, which would be asked. I did not talk about those questions here, right? None of these modules are talking about those questions. What are those questions, right, which we should target to at least solve them, right? We found out one site which are strivers, and this person has created couple of good playlists which shows a lot of problem statements. Okay, and using those problem statements, we'll be trying to target them and just focusing on those problem statements. Okay, so we identified that there are a lot of playlists. One of the playlists contains 200 questions, other one contains 400 questions, other one contains 100 questions, right? So I think this 201 is the one which I found which is good enough for us, and within this it has questions with respect to these categories. Okay, so the ones which are marked with one, right, would be picked up first, which is our first priority because we already know about all these concepts. We know about arrays, we know about strings, we know about bit manipulation. So we do not need any extra knowledge what we already have, right? Once we are done with this, we will start with this sorting, searching, and recursions. Okay, this is our second module. Why we'll be able to delve into it? Because we are covering DSA here, right? So in the meanwhile, once we reach DSA, right, we are able to solve some questions on DSA, which is the algorithm part of searching and sorting. We will be able to solve these questions also, right? And as part of data structures, once we are done with the data structures of text, queues, and linked lists, once we are done with it, we'll start with the third module, which is related to these questions, and we'll be targeting them to hit. Okay. Similarly, heaps also, right? But if you would see, after this, right, we will move to the fourth part, which is this heaps, right? Heaps, graph, and binary tree, which is like the second level or the highest level of data structures. Okay, we will attempt these questions. And once we are done with all this, the last part would be dynamic programming. We will see how what dynamic programming is and how to approach it. Okay, so this is the complete idea about DSA module. Right. Bye bye.
Thanks it. Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.